The rain in Atlanta never fell softly that night. It came down in sheets, hammering the cracked windshield of Maya Johnson's old Toyota like angry fists from the sky. She pulled over into the corner of a nearly empty gas station, the wipers screeching across the glass in a rhythm that matched her own ragged breathing. Then the car gave its final sigh, sputtering once, twice, and dying with a cough that made her heart sink. Maya slammed her palms against the steering wheel. Not now. Please, not tonight. Her voice was shaky, swallowed by the drumbeat of rain. She tried the ignition again, nothing. Not even the courtesy of a click. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like cruel reminders of her reality. 1 a.m., a dead car, 3 weeks of unpaid rent, and eviction papers that would be official tomorrow morning. She let her forehead rest against the wheel. At 27, Maya felt twice her age. The weight she carried working odd jobs since the insurance company laid her off, rationing medication for her little brother Jordan, lying to the landlord about just needing a few more days, all of it pressed down on her chest. Like an invisible boulder, her phone screen glared back at her. 1:03 a.m. Jordan was home, coughing again. The boy was only 14, but his asthma had become so brutal that most nights, Maya stayed up to count his breaths. Tonight she had promised she'd be back quickly, and here she was, stranded in a rain-soaked parking lot, on the edge of breaking. Her mind darted to one name, Derek, the ex. He'd left for Chicago months ago, chasing career dreams, but he had sworn, if you ever need me, really need me, call. Maya hated herself for thinking of him. Yet desperate people cling to whatever branch is left, even a broken one. With trembling fingers, she opened her contacts and scrolled until she found his number. Her vision blurred with tears, but she pressed it anyway. 1 ring, 2, 3. Her heart leapt when the line clicked. Hello? The voice that answered wasn't Derek's. It was deeper, steadier. A man's voice, warm but commanding, like velvet wrapped around steel. Maya yanked the phone back, checking the screen. She had dialed a 7 instead of a 4. Her stomach dropped. I'm sorry, she blurted. Wrong number. I didn't mean to bother you. She was about to hang up when the voice stopped her. Wait, are you okay? You sound upset. That startled her more than the storm outside. A stranger didn't just hear her. He listened. I'm fine, she lied quickly, but her voice cracked, betraying her. No, he said gently. You don't sound fine. Where are you? Are you safe? The simple concern cracked something open in her chest. Before she could stop herself, a sob escaped her lips, raw and desperate. My car. It broke down, she whispered. Gas station off Peachtree Road. It's late, and I don't know what to do anymore. There was silence on the line, long enough for her to believe he would hang up. Why should a stranger care? Then he spoke. I'm Ethan. What's your name? Maya, she managed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Maya, he repeated softly, as if tasting the name, as if committing it to memory. That's a beautiful name. Listen, I want you to lock your doors right now. Can you do that for me? She let out a bitter laugh. That's exactly what I was trying to do, call someone. But I don't. I don't really have anyone left. Her chest tightened. There it was, the truth she never wanted to admit. Friends faded when every conversation was about overdue bills. Family had been gone since the car accident 3 years earlier. And Jordan, sweet Jordan, was the only reason she kept going. On the other end of the line, Ethan didn't rush her. He didn't fill the silence with awkward words. He simply stayed there, present, the kind of presence Maya hadn't felt in years. And so, in that rain-soaked car, to a faceless voice on the phone, she began to pour everything out. The layoffs, the funeral, the hospital bills, nights of listening to Jordan wheeze while praying she wouldn't lose him too. Her words tumbled, clumsy and raw, like pieces of her heart falling onto the wet pavement. Finally, she whispered, almost ashamed, I think I've reached my breaking point, instead of judgment. Ethan said only, you've been carrying a weight no one person should ever have to carry. And yet here you are still standing. Maya let out a shaky breath. The sound of his voice was strangely steadying, like a hand she couldn't see, but could almost feel on her shoulder. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely invisible. That was the night a wrong number became the most right thing that had ever happened to her. The Rain had softened to a steady whisper by the time Maya reached their apartment on the south side of Atlanta, the kind of place where the paint peeled at the corners and the stairwell lights flickered like tired eyes. She climbed the stairs two at a time, shoes squeaking, heart pounding faster with every cough she imagined hearing through the thin walls. Inside, the air was warm and damp. Jordan lay curled on the couch under a threadbare blanket, his chest rising and falling in uneven waves. A saline nebulizer sat on the coffee table beside a bottle that held only one more treatment. A cartoon hummed quietly on the TV, colors sliding across his sleeping face. Maya knelt beside him and brushed the curls from his forehead. He felt hot, not fever hot, but worry hot. That simmering heat that always warned her she was about to spend the night. Counting seconds between breaths, she kissed his temple and tiptoed into the kitchenette to boil water for tea. On the counter, a letter from the landlord waited where she'd left it, its red stamp a relentless drum. Final notice. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a heartbeat, fear pricked the back of her neck. Collection agency. Landlord? But when she swiped, the voice gentled her shoulders down. "It's me," Ethan said. "Just checking you got home safe." Maya closed her eyes, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We're okay. Thank you for staying on the line. I meant what I said," he replied. "Lock the door. Drink something warm. And if you don't mind, tell me how your brother's doing." The kettle clicked, a small kindness in a day that had given her none. "He's sleeping. He'll need the clinic tomorrow, but they turned us away last week when I couldn't cover the copay." She winced as she said it, the shame still tender. "We'll figure something out." Silence. Then the hush of city sounds through his end of the line, horns muted by glass. Distant tires on wet streets. "Maya," he said at last, "you won't figure this out alone." She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle it, but the words stuck. Her strength had become a habit others admired from a distance, never a rope anyone offered her to hold. Tonight, a stranger had tossed one across the storm. They talked until the tea went cold. Not about money, not about fixes, about ordinary things that felt extraordinary because someone listened. The book she'd left halfway through before the layoffs. The way Jordan pretended not to like old Motown but sang along anyway. How rain in Atlanta smelled like wet concrete and magnolia leaves. Ethan spoke in the unhurried cadence of a man who rarely had to hurry. He asked questions that didn't feel like tests. When they said goodnight, her chest ached less. Morning arrived as a thin ribbon of light under the blinds. Jordan's cough had sharpened. They walked to the community clinic, passing murals painted over old brick, bright blows of color declaring we belong in a neighborhood that too often said otherwise. Inside the clinic, the line snaked to the door. A security guard wore patience like a uniform, and the receptionist's smile trembled with exhaustion. "Name?" "Jordan Johnson," Maya said. 14. "Asthma flare," the receptionist typed, eyes flicking to the screen. "You were here last week. Missed copay." She lowered her voice, not unkindly. "We've got a fund, but it's dry this month." Shame found its usual seat at the base of Maya's throat. She swallowed. "Can we be seen and I pay later?" A pause. The printer hummed. The receptionist frowned at her monitor. "Looks like you're approved." Maya blinked. "Approved for assistance," the woman said. "Surprised yourself. There's a note attached to your file. Dr. Patel will see you in 10. Head to exam room 3. Relief knocked Maya breathless. "Thank you," she whispered, guiding Jordan down the hall. He squeezed her fingers, his eyes bright with that mix of boyish trust and grown-up worry he wore too often. In the exam room, Dr. Patel listened to Jordan's lungs, face intent, hands gentle. He adjusted the nebulizer dosage and wrote prescriptions with efficient strokes. "This should settle him," he said. "If the wheeze returns tonight, run the treatment again and keep him upright. I'll see you both next week." At the pharmacy window, the tech bagged inhalers and steroids and an emergency spacer. "Paid," she said before Maya could reach for her wallet. "By who?" The tech shrugged. "Says anonymous medical aid." "Lucky kid." Maya's throat tightened. She knew. She didn't want to know. She wanted to pretend the world had turned kind all by itself. But when they stepped back out into the watery sun, she pulled out her phone. One message waited. "How's Jordan?" She typed, deleted, typed again. He's okay. Thank you. Then after a beat, because honesty was the least she owed him, was that you? The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I have friends who owe favors, he wrote. I'm just glad he's getting what he needs. No demands. No I told you so, just that. Gratitude swelled and complicated everything. That night, they talked again. It began with Jordan's breathing and drifted into Story's childhood summers for Maya. In a church rec center that smelled like pine sol and promise. Childhood summers for Ethan on a farm outside Columbus, where mornings started with chores and ended with pages from whatever paperback his mother had found at the thrift store. He mentioned his mother often, never with pity. More like a compass he still checked out of habit. Do you ever feel, Maya asked, staring at the ceiling cracks that traced invisible maps, like the world keeps a list what you're allowed to want, where you're allowed to stand? Ethan was quiet. I think the world keeps lists, he said. I also think we can rip them up. Easy to say from certain zip codes. The words slipped out before she could sand them down. He didn't flinch. You're right, he said. It is easier from some places. I can't undo that. But I can stand where you are and listen. And if I've got a longer lever, maybe I can help pry something loose. The image made her smile in the dark. A lever, a door. A little more room to breathe. The calls became a rhythm. After dinner dishes, before the late news, when the building's hallway fell quiet and the upstairs neighbor's footsteps faded. Sometimes they talked for an hour, sometimes only for a few minutes when Ethan was traveling for work Charlotte, Dallas. A quick turnaround to New York. He never said CEO. He didn't need to. The way he spoke to assistants mid-call, the clipped updates, the respect in people's voices when they interrupted to ask for him, those were clues in plain sight. Still, he asked about Maya's job hunt as if it mattered as much as a board meeting. He read aloud a paragraph from a book she'd mentioned, stumbling over a line and laughing at himself. He listened while she practiced answers to interview questions, pausing to tell her when her voice softened, when her conviction wavered. Say it like you believe it, he coached. Because I do. Some evenings, the city reminded her why believing was hard. On the bus home from a temp shift, a man in a suit glanced at her hair and muttered unprofessional under his breath, not to her so much as to the space beside her. The way people deliver small violences without looking up. Another day, a security guard followed her through a downtown boutique as if her pockets had their own heartbeat. She told Ethan with a laugh that didn't quite reach her ribs. I'm sorry, he said. The words low and fierce. I'm sorry the world asks you to carry that. She didn't want apologies. She wanted what? Recognition, maybe. That the ground wasn't level. That when he said lever, he understood the weight wasn't theoretical. One night, the power flickered out. Somewhere, a transformer had decided it had done enough. The building sighed into darkness, and the hallway turned into a tunnel. Jordan pressed closer on the couch, and Maya lit a candle that smelled faintly of vanilla and last year's birthday. Her phone buzzed. You okay? We're fine, she said, setting the candle on a plate. Blackout. Jordan's pretending not to be scared. I'm not scared, Jordan called, then whispered. I'm a little scared, Ethan chuckled. Tell him I've got the same problem when it thunders. Did you hear that? Maya smiled as Jordan snorted. Do you want me to send someone over? Ethan asked after a moment. Not pushy. Just there. My driver Marcus, he's nearby. He could drop a couple of battery lanterns, maybe some hot food. Maya hesitated. Pride was a careful thing, built slowly in the dark and easily knocked over. But Jordan's inhaler worked better when he wasn't anxious. And nothing dialed anxiety down like a warm meal and light that didn't flicker. If it's not trouble, she said, never trouble. 30 minutes later, a knock sounded at the door. A man in his 60s stood in the hallway, rain beating on the shoulders of his navy jacket. His eyes were kind. Miss Johnson? I'm Marcus. He held up a brown paper bag and a boxed lanterns. Mr. Walker asked me to drop these by and make sure you're all right. Thank you, Maya said, stepping aside. Please come in out of the rain. He shook his head with a smile. I've got the car running warm, but I'll wait downstairs until the lights come back. Just in case you need anything else. When he left, the apartment glowed soft and steady. Jordan devoured mac and cheese as if it were holiday roast, then fell asleep halfway through a superhero movie, his breathing easy. Maya stood at the window and watched taillights smear red across wet asphalt. She called Ethan. "You didn't have to do that," she said, though the gratitude in her voice gave her away. "I wanted to," he replied. "How's the hero?" Snoring. "Then we've done good work." For a little while they said nothing, listening to the rain return gentler now, like a lullaby. Maya traced a circle in the fogged glass with her fingertip. "Ethan, I'm here. Why are you doing this?" The words came out barely louder than the rain. Not just the lights or the clinic. "Why, me?" A long breath on the other end. When he spoke, it was careful, as if he were laying something fragile on a table between them. "Because the night you called, I realized I'd forgotten what a real conversation felt like. No agenda, no performance, just a person. I didn't want to let that go." The answer was both too simple and exactly enough. Maya pressed her forehead to the cool glass and closed her eyes. "I'm afraid," she admitted, "that one day I'll find out this is a story you tell to the people in your world. How you rescued a girl from mine. I won't let that be our story," he said. "You're not a headline, you're." The lights sputtered, then surged back to life. Down on the street, Marcus's car eased away, a quiet promise kept. Jordan shifted on the couch, murmured, settled. Maya slid the phone closer to her ear, as if proximity could make a voice into a hand she could hold. "Okay," she whispered. "Then let's keep talking." And they did, through power outages and temp jobs, through quiet triumphs like a callback interview and small stings like a clerk's suspicious stare. Each night, the distance between their zip codes shrank a little more. Each night, the lever found a new edge to pry. If part one had been a rescue, part two became a bridge, the kind built not from grand gestures, but from 1,000 steady planks of listening. The kind of bridge that could hold weight, the kind that could cross more than streets. Atlanta nights had a way of pressing down on the city like a heavy quilt, trapping the heat even after the sun had gone. From her small balcony, Maya watched headlights stream by on the freeway, each car a life she'd never know. Behind her, Jordan's laughter spilled from the living room. He'd discovered some goofy YouTube video. His cough softer now, his breathing steadier. For once, the sound of his laughter wasn't followed by wheezing. She should have been relieved. Instead, she felt the tug of unease. Every bag of medication, every clinic visit, every quiet act that had made Jordan's life easier, it all carried the invisible signature of Ethan Walker. She hadn't asked for it, yet he had given. She hadn't consented to being someone's charity case, yet here she was when the phone buzzed. She answered before it rang twice. "Evening," Ethan said. Voice warm, familiar, dangerously comforting. "Evening," she echoed. Leaning against the balcony rail, he asked about Jordan, about the job interview she'd had earlier that day at a call center. He teased her about the way she downplayed her answers, told her to stop selling herself short. She found herself laughing, actually laughing, at his clumsy impression of a recruiter. "Tell me, Miss Johnson, what's your greatest weakness?" His fake sternness cracked, and they both dissolved into giggles. But when the laughter faded, silence stretched too long. Maya's chest tightened. "Ethan," she said softly, "why are you doing all this for me?" For us, the pause was short, but she heard it. "Because you matter," he said. "Because you remind me that life isn't just numbers on a screen. Because when you talk, I feel like I'm hearing something real for the first time in years." His words landed with weight, and yet there it was again. That shadow of doubt. Real for him, maybe. But for her, what did it mean to lean on a man who lived in a penthouse in New York, while she struggled to keep a roof over her brother's head? After they hung up, Maya sat with the silence. She remembered the look she'd gotten at the clinic lobby last week, when she'd walked in behind Ethan's driver. The receptionist's eyebrows had risen, her lips twitching as if to ask, "What's a girl like you doing with people like them?" She had grown up knowing those looks, the kind that measured her skin before her words, her hair before her resume. Those looks had chased her out of clothing stores, followed her through job interviews, whispered behind her back in classrooms. They told her, "Stay in your lane, girl. Don't think you belong where we do." Now she wondered, was Ethan different, or just better at disguising the same hierarchy? A week later, She sat at the kitchen table, Jordan across from her scribbling homework. The glow of the single overhead bulb pooled on the scarred surface, illuminating bills she hadn't opened. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Step outside." Confused, she slipped on her sneakers and pushed open the apartment door. Parked at the curb was Marcus's familiar sedan, its black paint shining under the streetlight. He stepped out, holding an envelope. "Evening, Miss Johnson," he said kindly. "Mr. Walker asked me to bring this to you." She frowned. "What is it?" "Just a note," Marcus replied. He didn't tell me more. Inside, the envelope held a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. "Careful PENMANSHIP. Maya. I don't want you to feel like a charity case. I don't want to replace your strength or erase your pride. I only want to share the weight. If that's too much, tell me, and I'll stop. But please know this, you are not a problem I'm trying to solve. You are the person I wait all day to hear from." Her chest tightened. She hated that her eyes stung. She hated that she wanted to believe him. Back inside, Jordan peered at her, pencil tapping against his notebook. "That from him?" "Yes," she admitted. Jordan leaned back, crossing his skinny arms. "You know, not every white guy who helps a black family is looking down on us." Maya blinked at him. "And since when did you become so wise?" He grinned, then coughed, covering it with his sleeve. "Since I started breathing better," she chuckled, ruffling his curls. But when she lay in bed later, staring at the cracked ceiling, her smile faded. Gratitude and suspicion wrestled inside her like two boxers refusing to quit. Was she falling for a man who truly saw her, or for the illusion of safety he represented? And if the world already had its lists of who belonged where, what would it do to a girl like her who dared to step across the line? As she drifted into uneasy sleep, one truth pulsed beneath it all. She wanted to keep hearing his voice, even if it terrified her. The bus ride to downtown Atlanta was always long, but this morning it felt endless. Maya sat by the window, watching warehouses blur into skyscrapers, her hands clutching the strap of her worn purse like it might keep her steady. She had been called for a second-round interview at a mid-size marketing firm, an opportunity that, if she landed it, could finally pull her and Jordan off the cliff's edge. Act confident. Ethan had told her the night before, "You belong in that room, Maya, don't forget it." But as she stepped into the gleaming lobby of Peachtree Tower, with its marble floors and glass walls reflecting people in tailored suits, her confidence thinned. Every polished shoe, every clipped conversation seemed to say, "This is not your world." She checked in at the front desk, then was directed upstairs. On the 25th floor, she sat waiting, resume trembling in her hands. She tried to calm herself by scrolling her phone, but the tension in her shoulders refused to ease. Then, faintly, from an open office down the hall, she heard a voice. "Tell the board I'll have the reports finalized by end of day. Reschedule the Chen meeting for next week." Maya froze. That voice, she knew it. Every cadence, every calm inflection, it was Ethan. Her heart stuttered. The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered against the armrest. She rose, pulse pounding in her ears, and walked toward the office before she could stop herself. And there he was, behind a desk of glass and chrome, speaking into a headset, glancing at papers that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His suit fit like it had been sewn onto him, and the skyline sprawled behind him like a backdrop for a magazine cover. The stranger on the phone, the man who had held her tears in the dark, was Ethan Walker, Billionaire CEO. His name flashed in her memory from headlines she'd glimpsed on TV at the laundromat. Youngest Fortune 500 executive expands his empire. The floor beneath her seemed to tilt. When Ethan's eyes lifted and landed on her, they widened. He pulled off his headset. "Maya," she staggered back, throat tight. "So this is who you are." He stepped toward her, palms open. "I was going to tell you. I didn't want this to get in the way of what we had." What we had. Her voice cracked, drawing curious looks from two assistants, hovering near the hallway. "You let me pour my soul out to you, thinking you were just a guy who understood. And all this time," she gestured wildly at the office, the suits, the skyline, "you're a billionaire, a white man who can buy silence with checks. Did you laugh about me with your friends?" Poor black girl crying into her phone. What a story to tell at a cocktail party. No, Ethan's face twisted with something close to pain. God, no, Maya, that's not what this is. But her vision blurred with hot tears. I trusted you. I told you things I've never told anyone. And you, her voice dropped to a whisper that shook. You let me believe you were someone else, Maya. Please, he said, his hand catching the door frame as if to anchor himself. 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. She shook her head and spun away. The elevator doors opened like salvation, and she stepped inside. Pressing the button with trembling hands, Ethan moved forward, stopping the doors with his palm. I wasn't lying about what you mean to me, he said, his voice raw, stripped of its usual composure. Please don't let the world we come from decide for us. The doors closed. His face disappeared behind steel. Maya pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and let out a sound caught between a sob and a gasp. She wandered the city in a daze. Midtown cafes buzzed with laughter that felt cruelly distant. Couples walked hand in hand, umbrellas shielding them from the drizzle that had begun again. Every streetlight seemed to spotlight her shame. She had let herself believe. By dusk, she found herself sitting in a coffee shop, staring at the rain streaking down the window. Her phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times. She ignored it. Then headlights cut across the glass. A familiar black sedan pulled up outside. Her stomach twisted. Marcus, Ethan's driver, entered with an umbrella, his gray hair damp from the rain. He walked to her table, his expression gentle. Miss Johnson, he said softly, Mr. Walker asked me to make sure you get home safely. Maya stiffened. Did he send you to convince me to talk to him? Marcus shook his head. No, ma'am, only to keep you safe and to give you this. He held out an envelope. Inside, on thick cream stationery, was Ethan's handwriting. I never lied about who I am, only about what I do. Because for once, I wanted someone to see me, not my bank account, not my last name. Just me. If you can't forgive that, I understand. But if you can, I'll wait as long as it takes. Maya folded the note with trembling hands. Outside, the rain blurred the city lights into soft smears of gold and red. She didn't know if she could forgive him, didn't know if she could believe him. But she knew one thing. The sound of his voice still lingered in her chest like a song. She couldn't stop humming, no matter how hard she tried. And that terrified her most of all. The envelope lay on Maya's kitchen table for 2 days, unopened again and again, as though its meaning might change if she gave it time. Every time she reached for it, Jordan's voice would interrupt. Just read it, Maya, or burn it. But don't torture yourself. She finally sighed, unfolding it once more. The neat, deliberate handwriting hadn't shifted. The words hadn't softened. Ethan wanted her to see him, not his title, not his wealth, not the fortress of privilege he lived in. But how could she separate the man from the empire that surrounded him? Her phone buzzed again that night. This time, she answered. Why can't you leave me alone? She asked, her voice breaking. I told you, Ethan said gently. I'll wait. As long as it takes. Wait for what? For me to get over the fact that you lied. For me to pretend that your world and mine could ever mix. People like you don't marry people like me. They save them, parade them, or hide them. That's how it works. On the other end of the line, silence stretched. Then, Ethan's voice, steady but pained. Maybe that's how the world works. But it's not how I work. The next evening, Marcus appeared at their door again. Jordan was the one who answered this time, grinning when he saw the older man. Hey, Mr. Marcus, Jordan said. You here to drop off another note? Marcus chuckled. Not today. Just came to check how you two are holding up. Mr. Walker worries. Maya crossed her arms, suspicion prickling. Does he pay you to say that? Marcus met her eyes without flinching. Ma'am, I've worked for a lot of rich men. Ethan's different. He doesn't hand out checks because he wants people to bow. He helps because he remembers what it feels like to have nothing. His mother raised him alone after his dad left. She used to clean houses, same as mine did. He never forgot. Maya's arms loosened. She wanted to dismiss Marcus's words, to guard herself. But there was something in his tone and honesty built on years of loyalty that seeped into her. That night, she found herself replaying conversations with Ethan. The way he never interrupted when she ranted about the job market. The way he
Everyone,
laughed when she
I'd like
teased
to
him
introduce
about
my
not knowing
girlfriend.
how to season chicken. The way he asked about Jordan's school projects, as if they were the most important negotiations in his day. None of it had felt fake. So why did it hurt so much now? Because the world outside their late-night phone calls was not kind. She'd grown up with its sharp edges. The clerk who followed her in the grocery store aisle. The landlord who reminded her every month that this isn't a charity. The kids at school who called Jordan names that bruised more deeply than fists. How could she believe Ethan could stand against all that? The struggle burned hottest one afternoon when she picked Jordan up from the rec center. As they walked home, a group of older boys loitered near the corner store. One of them smirked. "Hey, Maya, we saw you with that fancy car last week. Got yourself a sugar daddy now?" The others laughed, voices sharp as glass. Her face burned. She tightened her grip on Jordan's hand and walked faster. "Don't worry," another boy jeered. "He'll get bored once he's done playing rescue." Jordan yanked his hand free, spun around, and shouted, "Shut up. He's not like that." The laughter grew louder. Maya pulled him along, her chest aching. When they finally reached their building, Jordan's eyes were blazing. "Why do they get to say that?" he demanded. "Why does everyone think he can't care about us just because he's rich and white and we're not?" Maya hugged him tightly. "Because people fear what doesn't fit their boxes. They'll call it fake before they'll believe it's real. Do you believe it's real?" Jordan asked softly. Maya froze. She didn't have an answer. Later that week, she sat at the kitchen table staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Ethan's name. Pride held her back, but longing pushed her forward. Finally, she tapped call. He picked up on the first ring. "Maya," her throat closed. For a moment she almost hung up. Then she whispered, "I don't know what to do." "You don't have to decide tonight," Ethan said. "But let me show you. One conversation, face to face. If afterward you still want me gone, I'll respect it." The plea in his voice was quiet, not forceful. It reminded her of the first night they spoke, when he told her to lock her car doors. A stranger's voice had steadied her then, and part of her still craved that steadiness. She exhaled shakily. "One conversation. That's all. Then I'll be grateful for even that," he said softly. That night, as she lay awake listening to Jordan's even breathing, Maya thought about the battle raging inside her. Gratitude for everything Ethan had done. Doubt that his world could ever hold space for hers. Fear of becoming a story told in hushed tones at charity galas. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he meant what he said. It wasn't love yet. But it was something dangerous. Something alive. And it scared her more than anything else in the world. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope with gold lettering. The kind of paper Maya had only ever seen displayed behind glass at stationery boutiques. She turned it over, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Walker Foundation Gala. Black tie required. Her name was printed beneath Ethan's inelegant script. Jordan found her staring at it. "So are we going?" he asked, already grinning. Maya shook her head. "This isn't my world, Jordan. It could be," he said, his voice firm in a way that made him sound older than 14. "Besides, he asked you. Don't you want to see if he's serious?" She wanted to say no, to insist she didn't care. But the truth pulsed quietly inside her. She did want to know. The night of the gala, Marcus pulled up in the sedan, the city lights glittering against the polished black paint. Maya smoothed her thrifted navy gown, her hands trembling. It wasn't couture, but Elaine, the marketing executive who'd taken her under her wing at work, had lent her a pair of earrings that made her feel braver. When Ethan saw her step out of the car, his eyes softened. "You look incredible." She fought the urge to believe him. "Let's just get this over with." Inside the ballroom, chandeliers sparkled above a sea of gowns and tuxedos. Waiters glided past with trays of champagne. Conversations drifted through the air like perfume donations, mergers, vacations in the Hamptons. Heads turned as Ethan guided Maya inside. She felt their eyes crawl over her skin, weighing her, sorting her, labeling her. She'd lived under that gaze before in stores, in interviews, on sidewalks. Tonight, it was sharper, honed by money. A woman with icy blonde hair and a smile as thin as glass approached. "Ethan," she purred, her hand grazing his arm. "So good to see you." Then her eyes slid to Maya, narrowing just slightly. "And you must be the new assistant?" Maya stiffened. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Vanessa," he said evenly, "this is Maya Johnson. She's not my assistant. She's my girlfriend." The word hung in the air like a flare. Several people nearby glanced over, whispering. Vanessa's smile faltered for the briefest second before recovering. "How charming," she said, her tone dripping with disbelief. Ethan always did have generous instincts. Maya's cheeks burned. The implication was clear. To Vanessa, she was Charity dressed in navy satin. Ethan placed his hand at the small of Maya's back. "Respectfully, Vanessa, my instincts have nothing to do with generosity. They have everything to do with knowing when I've found something real." For the first time that evening, Maya believed him not because of what he said, but because of how he said it, loud enough for the room to hear. Unapologetic. Still, the whispers continued. "Who is she? Where did she come from?" She caught fragments from the south side. "Single mother figure, not our kind." Every word was a blade. Maya forced a smile, her nails digging into her palm. She hated that she cared, hated that these strangers' approval mattered. But it did, because she knew what it was like to be erased in rooms like this, and she had promised herself never to shrink again. Later, Ethan found her on the balcony, away from the crowd. The city stretched below, a quilt of light and motion. "I shouldn't have brought you here," he said quietly. Maya turned, anger sparking. "So what? They were right. I don't belong?" "No," Ethan said, stepping closer. "I mean, I shouldn't have thrown you into the fire before you were ready. These people, half of them are miserable, clinging to appearances. Don't let them define us." "Easy for you to say," she shot back. "You'll still be their golden boy tomorrow. I'll still be the black girl they think you picked up as some kind of project." He flinched, not from her words, but from the truth they carried. "Then let's show them they're wrong." Maya searched his face, trying to find a crack, some hint of arrogance or pity, but all she saw was sincerity and exhaustion. The kind that came from fighting battles she couldn't see. She exhaled slowly. "One night doesn't prove anything." "No," Ethan agreed, "but neither do their whispers." He reached for her hand. "What matters is what we believe." Her heart thudded. She wanted to pull away, to guard herself, but instead, she let his fingers intertwine with hers. Warm, steady, real. Inside, the music swelled, glasses clinked, Vanessa laughed too loudly. But out on the balcony, under the glittering skyline of Atlanta, Maya realized something terrifying. The fight wasn't just against prejudice or class, or whispers in ballrooms. The fight was inside her, between the fear of being broken again, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, Ethan Walker meant every word. That night, as Marcus drove them home, Maya sat in silence, her reflection blurred in the tinted window. She replayed the looks, the whispers, Vanessa's smile, but she also replayed Ethan's voice, firm and clear. "She's not my assistant. She's my girlfriend." For the first time, she wondered if believing him might not be the foolish choice but the brave one. The night after the gala, Maya lay awake staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above her bed. The whirring blades sounded like whispers replaying in her mind Vanessa's icy tone, the guests' curious stares, the murmurs of Charity and assistant. Each word had clung to her dress like smoke she couldn't wash off. Beside her, Jordan snored softly on the couch, clutching the blanket Marcus had given him weeks earlier. His steady breathing should have been comfort enough, but for Maya, doubts swirled heavier than the humid Atlanta air. What if she had been a fool? What if all she was to Ethan was a rebellion against his world? A temporary thrill in crossing boundaries? When the novelty wore off, where would that leave her, and worse, where would that leave Jordan? Her phone buzzed. One message. "Can I see you tomorrow, please?" She stared at the screen until dawn painted the room pale gray. Finally, she typed back, "One last time. Then we'll see." The next afternoon, Marcus picked her up, his warm smile a small anchor in her storm of nerves. He drove her not to a tower, not to a gala hall, but to a quiet park by the river. Children chased soccer balls across the grass. Couples picnicked under old oak trees. The world here was stripped of chandeliers and whispers. Ethan stood waiting by the pond, hands in his pockets, his suit jacket traded for a simple white shirt rolled at the sleeves. For the first time, He looked less like a CEO and more like the man she had spoken to on the phone that rainy night. Just a voice, just a presence. "Maya," he said, relief flooding his face when he saw her. "You came." She crossed her arms. "You asked." They walked along the water's edge in silence before she finally broke it. "Why me, Ethan? You could have anyone in your world. Someone like Vanessa, rich, polished, approved. Why choose someone like me, who'll always make you answer questions you don't want to hear?" He stopped, turning to face her. "Because when you called me that night, you didn't see money. You didn't see status. You just heard a voice that listened. You gave me something I hadn't felt in years: connection. Not to Ethan Walker, the billionaire, but to Ethan, the man who still misses his mom, who still remembers cleaning barns in Ohio, who still feels alone in a room full of suits." Her throat tightened. "And what if I can't survive your world? What if their stares break me before we even start? Then we won't live in their world," he said simply. "We'll build ours." The words hung in the air, fragile but powerful. For the first time, Maya felt the possibility that love could be bigger than the walls others built. Weeks passed. Their relationship unfolded in small, stubborn steps. Ethan called nightly, sometimes from airports, sometimes from his office long after midnight. Maya began a new job Elaine helped her secure, one that valued her sharp mind and unshakable resilience. Jordan's health stabilized with consistent treatment, and his laughter filled the apartment more often than coughs. Still, shadows lingered. At the grocery store, an older woman glanced between Ethan and Maya, her lips tightening. At church, a neighbor whispered, "Is that him?" The reminders never stopped. Society didn't easily forgive love that crossed both race and class. But Maya learned to meet the whispers with silence, her chin high. And Ethan never wavered, his hands steady at her back, his eyes never flinching from hers. One warm spring evening, he brought her back to the old apartment she and Jordan had nearly lost. The place was empty now, stripped bare for new tenants. Maya stood in the doorway, memories pressing against her chest: the leaky faucet, the sleepless nights counting bills, the corner where she'd cried while Jordan slept. "It's not much," she said, her voice breaking. Ethan stepped beside her. "It's everything," he said. "It's where you fought, where you refused to give up, where you called me." She turned, eyes glistening. "Why are you showing me this?" He took her hands, his gaze unshaken. "Because I don't just love who you are now. I love every version of you: the girl who fought alone, the sister who sacrificed everything, the woman who still doubts she's enough. Maya Johnson, I love you. And if you'll let me, I want to build the future with you, one that doesn't ask permission from anyone." Her tears spilled. For all the doubts, for all the whispers, she saw truth in his eyes, the same truth she had heard that first night through static and storm. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Ethan, I'll let you." Months later, under a canopy of string lights in a small Atlanta garden, Maya stood surrounded by the people who mattered. Jordan, grinning in a too-big suit. Elaine and her husband, beaming with pride. Marcus, his eyes damp though he pretended otherwise. No chandeliers, no marble floors. Just laughter, love, and a promise that barriers, whether built of race, wealth, or fear, would not win. As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, he whispered what he had told her from the very start: "You are not a story to save. You are my story to live." Maya squeezed his hands, smiling through tears. For once, she didn't hear the whispers. She only heard her own heart, steady and free. The girl who had dialed the wrong number on a stormy night had found, against all odds, the right one.